You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. I'm Bill McIntyre here with Jon Gallo for another edition of this week's Long Island News, the news show that brings you news stories about Long Island and about Long Islanders. We have with us today the Nassau County Police Commissioner, Commissioner Patrick Ryder. Hello, how are you?
I'm well, sir. Good to be back.
Yeah. Man,
good to be back and in the studio.
Oh man, there's a lot of water under the bridge since we last spoke.
Yeah, a lot of changes.
Yeah,
things have definitely shifted in Nassau County. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that is definitely true. New year.
We did have a chance. We've had a chance to talk to Laura Curran. Because you guys were. I mean, when we would interview her and we'd interview you guys were a good team.
We had a great relationship. We still do. But the new county exec and I have the same type of relationship. So it's starting off with a bang, being very aggressive on things like his agenda on bail reform and support of law enforcement, which is great. So the first 3 or 4 weeks here, but actually, a couple of weeks before actually stepping into office, part of the transition, everything went well, pretty seamless here for the police department, and we continue to do our jobs.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And I know we talked to the new county executive, Blakeman, a few weeks ago, and he told us he was very eager to work with you, Commissioner Ryder, of course, on some of those issues you just mentioned. And we'll get to the bail reform press conference that happened this week, some other things. But let's start maybe where that actual press conference happened. I know we talk to you pretty much every time about what the status of the training complex was, which is, basically on our campus here. And now, obviously, we can say it's all nice and complete, nice and shiny, open to do what it's supposed to do. But tell us a little bit more about why that's so important and what that means now that it is fully functioning.
So we are 98% done, complete. It's not actually all complete. The auditorium is not done. It's a 400-seat auditorium. They just put in the final sheetrock and it's starting to tape and paint. In come the seats. By mid-March, we should be up and running. But we've pushed through 168 recruits that will graduate on the 16th, but they're already out on patrol, February 16th. We have a brand new class of 40 in there. But the idea of why the campus was chosen was the easy part. It was free land, so we always take free land.
That always helps.
Yes, that was a big part.
That's a no-brainer. Okay,
but partnering up with the college now, and we know enrollment is down in the school. As I'm an instructor here on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and this is the pitch to all the people out there listening. It's a great institution. It's a great school. I went here myself, and look at me today. Mm-hmm. So
there you go.
We are. Partnering up with the college, we're bringing the diversity of the college into policing. We're taking them, students from their classrooms, spending a day with us in role play. Let's stick with the role play. So if you're doing role play with us, those same kids that are that come from our diverse communities become the actors in our role play. So they become the community in the role play. We teach our cops on how to act. When it's done, we break out, and now those kids from that community tell us how they feel on the way the officers responded. Right. Implicit bias is one of those things that, you don't know you're saying what you're saying when you're saying, all these, it's a bar, it must be an Irish bar, right? And, right. I can take a shot at the Irish
right.
here, right?
Yeah, you can do that.
So that implicit bias, people sometimes don't realize what they say. And I'm one of them, right? We always make them mistakes. So now if that kid steps back and he says, "Officer, when you said this to me, that offended me. And why did it offend you?" Well, this is why. And so we're going to learn from our community. Nobody in the country teaches like that. Nobody trains like that. The village that we're building. And again, that's the next part of this, the phase. The response from our cops, from the track, the EVOC track where they learn how to drive at a high rate of speed, responding to this call, jumping out, and now dealing with the cognitive person that's got a knife standing in the street and yelling and screaming he wants to kill somebody. What's the first thing you do? The way I was taught, the first thing you do is you're drawing your weapon, you're pointing the weapon down at him, and you're saying, drop the knife. He's 50 yards away from me, or 50 feet away from me. He could have still hurt me, absolutely. But I have the protection of the car. I can stand behind the car door. So I'm going to try to talk to him first. I'm not going for my weapon. As he gets closer, I can now, if he's not listening to verbal commands, I can reach for my taser. So my taser is, again, a de-escalation tool. And then if everything else fails, if the taser didn't work, and many times in a case of a mental aid case, the taser doesn't work or it doesn't stick through the jacket. Now we will unfortunately have to go to that use of that deadly physical force. But we teach our cops that escalation in that village, in as real life as you can get it, So what we're going to do is take policing out of the tactical mode. We're not going to forget our tactics. We still train that way, but we're putting them into a community training mode. You will know how to use your firearm because we always teach that. We'll know how to use deadly physical force and when to use it because we always teach that. But now we're going to mix in training with community, understanding implicit bias in the role play, not in what the classroom says. The classroom's great. In the classroom, we give instructions, we're all teachers, we give her instructions, and the kid takes it or doesn't take it, or he knows to give the right answer on the test. Putting a cop in the role play and then breaking up when it's done, and then some kid telling him, listen, or some man saying, because we're also going to use our community, he's going to say, listen, you didn't understand. When you came into my home, you were gave my wife a look because she wouldn't shake your hand. In the Orthodox Jewish community, that's not accepted. Mm-hmm. In the Muslim community, that's not accepted. And just yesterday, I met with a woman, and she put her hand out, so I shook her hand, and she's from the Muslim community, and I said to her, I go, listen, I apologize. I go, your hand came out first. She goes, I know. I go, I was taught just to put my hand over my chest and acknowledge you and say, greetings. And so,
yeah, Coach,
but you learn that. Just like you learn a wrestling move, muscle memory, you do it over and over and over. Mm-hmm. We put our cops through this over and over and over. And when they get into that scenario, that's how they do it. If the only thing they're ever taught, pull your firearm and point it at them, which I was taught in 1984. Right. That's all you remember.
Yeah.
No, use the verbal judo. Use your mouth to communicate. De-escalate.
Yeah.
So
that's tough. That's a lot for a cop to, put through his brain when he's in a hot situation like that.
Seconds.
But it's necessary. I think that's the point. Yeah. And the real interesting thing is that bias that you're talking about, because it's not a bias that even the person that has it can identify. It's the way you were brought up. It's the surroundings. It's your culture.
It's not explicit.
Right. And, you're thrown into another situation, and all of a sudden everything you say is no.
Mm-hmm.
That's...
Yeah. Well, to your point, though, Commissioner and Bill, that's, like you said, where the training comes into play, knowing that, it's hard to tell someone to do that in the moment and just expect them to, not kind of have their instincts, kind of outweigh it. But if you, really instill it and you really have that to build upon, whether it's cultural sensitivity, like you just mentioned in those situations with maybe people of different faiths or, knowing, like you said, how to respond proportionately to the threat and, try to, use the space and other things in a way that give you reassurance. Certainly we want to keep everyone safe, and that's great to see that'll help along the way in this process. And we'll round up, we'll say 98% is got a stamp, because I know we had some of the class graduate through there. So definitely great to see how that's going to be utilized. We talked about it also with Kate Murray, the town of Hempstead clerk. I know she was also really talking about the praises of what she expects for it too, and the town itself of Hempstead. So that's very important. And maybe now the transition, I guess, to some of the kind of data points, that people were always talking about and concerned, kind of top line CompStat info in terms of those crimes, those bigger ones, the index crimes, I think. How did we do? Because, we heard about, and we'll get into the bill reform topic in that press conference, but year over year, did we see increases in those violent crimes and those other things? Is it better? How is it, Commissioner?
So we went 2 years, as we know, as the safest community in America, right? Last year, we might win it again. And again, we'll know in March, only because of the way the numbers came in. But you heard what the new county exec has said, is that, that when crime is on the rise. Guns on the street, we have never recovered more guns on the street in the month of January than we've recovered already this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how many guns. Preventive. So we prevented the robbery, we prevented the homicide, we prevented the shooting by taking that gun off the street. That's the good side. So the numbers show that they're down. Homicides were down another 28% last year. That's after being over record year lows last year and the year before. So we drove our homicides down. Our street robberies were down slightly. Our overall index crimes went up a 5% nudge, but that's minimal when you look at what the numbers are across the board and having 2 years of record low numbers. That all being said, our quality of life crimes are rising. The bail reform crimes are getting out and repeating crimes again. And, there's a discussion on what's the higher number. In the county, it's about 11.5%. So 11.5% of the time we arrest somebody that get out on bail, they commit more crimes. In some cities, it's only 11%. To that victim who's been victimized twice, and sometimes who's not even out of a hospital yet, or I shouldn't say a hospital because that's a violent crime, but who's not even got their car back after being vandalized, or the catalytic converter being cut out of the car, hasn't gotten their car back yet, but the bad guy's out and he's doing it again the next day. So, and the county executive made it very clear. Look, we need to sit down with the lawmakers and the police and the politicians and say, we got to redo this, reform the reform, right. And fix some of the issues, and his response is, just repeal it and let's start over. That's one way, or reform with the reform. That's another way, which you're hearing from two sides. Yep. But no matter what, we need to get in a room and we need to fix it. I get bail reform. We've said this before. Yeah,
we know why it came about.
Rich kid should never be out over a poor kid. A kid that can't come up with $500 sits in a county jail. You don't fix that kid. You make that kid worse. He's in an environment that's not healthy. I mean, it's healthy as far as the way they control it, but you're around real bad people. Yeah. So let's find a way that we can get there and get a better look at bail reform and, with the discovery. Everything is now put on law enforcement, and the guy who committed the crime or the girl who committed the crime, he's gotten all the exceptions now. It's all, it's all on law enforcement and the judges to make sure it gets done on time, and the DA.
When we first talked about the bail reform thing, we talked about why it became an issue. Some people were languishing in jail. Okay, so we can't let that happen. But we also talked about how it seemed like judges had no say. And we came to the conclusion that then why do we have judges?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think, it's a good idea. It's something that had to be, it's something that came from a problem that had to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
Personally, if we want to point fingers, you're going to blame somebody. I think the Department of Corrections has some explaining to do when they lose somebody in their custody for 3 years. That's a problem, So yeah, the thing that got me was the discovery. It was almost a physical impossibility for prosecutors and police to deliver that.
Yeah, so when you look at the newest thing in police reform is body cameras, right? So all of, and I know we'll go in depth about that, but one arrest, 10 cops show up, 10 cops have a body camera, 10 videos got to be looked at and turned over to the district attorney to turn over to the defense counsel. That's not even the paperwork. That's not the GPSs. That's just the video cameras. So, and it's hours sometimes. You don't turn your camera off when you transport a prisoner. So that 30 minutes to the station, the camera's on, right? So we can't be accused of anything in the car. That's a lot of video that has to be looked at, has to be analyzed and stored. We can't change anything. There's no way I can manipulate the video. I can manipulate faces to take out innocent people that shouldn't be in the release of the video, but the original video always stays intact. So that's, transparency and accountability. You can't take that away.
And that takes time, like you said, human power to actually go through all that information. And, I know we've talked to, the previous DA, the acting DA, and, we look forward to talking to the new DA, who obviously you're going to have a close working relationship with. And, she has obviously strong opinions too, and has a strong background in terms of that office. So I guess maybe can you talk about how, both how she sees it a bit, and maybe also the logistics of what this executive order was that the new that Blakeman had put out this week in terms of releasing, I guess, data like on arrests. Can you talk about those two things and how they play, I guess, going forward, Commissioner?
So, I can't speak for the DA. That would be the DA to make that comment. But I can for what the county exec signed. And what the county exec, and we spoke about this, is that you make an arrest of an individual that just got out on bail. Right. And he should have been held. And I'm saying he or she should have been held. Right. and we let him out. The judge didn't have discretion. The DA couldn't make any argument because it's just black and white. That possession, that crime, he gets to walk out. He now commits another crime, or he buys more drugs, or he sells more drugs. And when our overdoses are skyrocketing, that's the biggest problem we have.
Yeah.
So we're not, again, we're not helping them, but by putting that in the notice, saying that the current individual was just released on cashless bail system, it's keeping the pressure on Albany that we need change. That's the message that's really coming in. We're educating the public to say, look, you're getting mixed messages. Everybody pitches things different ways and gives you different numbers. Here's a fact. This individual was arrested on Wednesday for stealing a car. We let him out. On Thursday, he stole another car. We let him out. On Friday, he stole another car. We let him out. This can go on for a real long time and nobody's stopping it. That's why you see the smaller quality of life type crimes skyrocketing, because bad guys know they're not going to be held accountable till you get them into a grand jury and a trial. So I'm going to stay out and I'm going to continue to commit my crimes. And, maybe in about a year, you'll catch up to me.
See, in that story, I would have assumed that, okay, so you got out without bail after you first stole a car, and then you went and did it again. To me, getting out the second time is an issue.
Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, right.
And
once
that's
you
the
repeat the
discretion
behavior,
of the judge.
It's like, you're telling me that this is what you want to do.
Yeah, well, a bill or a law is written black and white. It doesn't have any room for wiggle.
And there you go.
Here's what the paper says. I got to do this.
There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray.
We have great judges in Nassau County. We got, politicians across the board. We have great politicians in the county. They all kind of get law and order. They all want the protections. They all have an argument from both sides, right? And again, we're supposed to stay neutral. But we're the police. We're the pro side of this. We believe in law and order. That's why we take these jobs. But at the same time, we need to go back and just give back the discretion. Just sit in a room when you're sitting down as the judge and the DA says, Your Honor, this is the second time this week he's committed the same crime. All right, you know what? $500 bail and or remand. And again, giving discretion back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and,
because one of the biggest egregious things that judges, and I've heard this said, is a flagrant disregard for the law. So if a guy gets arrested once for doing X, and you let him out and he does it again, there's a perfect definition. Isn't that?
That's exactly what it is.
I always wanted to ask the question, you read a story in the paper where a guy gets pulled over at a stop sign or whatever, and his license has been suspended 27 times. And I'm aghast. How do you get past 10 times? Or
years ago, the way the law is written, if you get a suspension and you have 10 suspensions on 10 different dates or 5 on 5 different dates, we now impound your car. So you take the vehicle away.
Oh.
And it goes to a tow yard. When he comes into the court and he pays the fine, he gets the release to go back to pick up his car. But we're not allowed to do that no more, right? We can take the driver out of the car. We don't let him drive. We give him another ticket. But by doing that, we educated him, hey, you're not going to get to drive here, this vehicle, unless you start driving right. There's a penalty for your bad driving. And now it's our deaths on the road last year, deaths on the road went up. Our accidents went up. People, my number one complaint I get is crazy driving. People saying that, they're flying through the streets and everything else. We are also a little bit guilty in the fact that our enforcement has dropped. But our enforcement has dropped because of COVID. The interactions with the public. And so now we got to engage again. And we got to get our public to engage again. And we got to get our courts to engage again.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's remind our listeners that they are listening to this week's Long Island News here on 90.3 WHPC, the radio voice of Nassau Community College, with Bill McIntyre, myself, Jon Gallo, and thankfully still here joined by Nassau County's Police Commissioner, Patrick Ryder. So, okay, and just to maybe close the discussion, and I know it's kind of overarching and it'll continue around bail reform. We did speak to a Newsday reporter, Yancey Rowe, the Albany Bureau Chief, and just kind of gave us a little bit of the breakdown on kind of the logistics and, the pathway maybe to do some of these reforms. I know he said that, what had been done was that some additional crimes were kind of listed as what could be, I guess, bailable or not bailable offenses, to put it in kind of layman's terms. And I guess maybe that's the potential to add more things. But the idea of, repealing a law does seem kind of difficult. But I know, to your point, it sounds like, kind of by any means necessary to kind of bring this back to the table, is, I guess, the position of law enforcement. A lot of people who are concerned, of course, about what they see. So moving, maybe away from that to an extent, can you talk about more the general priorities, Commissioner, on some of those topics you talked about, whether it be violent crime, traffic safety, opioids, bias, domestic violence, and other things like quality of life concerns?
So obviously our job is public safety, right? Law and order, public safety, protect and serve. Our number one problem that we have right now is our opiate crisis. And we see a homicide on the street when somebody kills somebody. We see a shooting, right? And we say, oh my God, and it gets front page news. We don't see the 3 kids that overdosed that same day on the same drug dealer that sold them the bad press pill that has fentanyl in it and killed them. So first time users, right, are dying using these new press pills. Our focus right now is opiates, guns, and again, protecting our seniors. And we're doing a press conference at 12 o'clock today. Elderly woman yesterday was scammed by this guy. He needed money. He said, your son was in an accident. Your nephew was in an accident. He needs this money to get out. She paid him the first time. The second time she realized something ain't right. She called the police. The police set up. She came in. She did the package, and then we came out from behind the closet, and he gets arrested on the front lawn.
Wow.
So
that's great.
That's a great story.
That's a great one.
They don't usually
scams
end
are
like
hard
that,
a lot of
though.
times.
There's 3 or 4 bad ones for every good one. And that's what breaks our heart. They work their whole life for their life savings. Yeah. And then, of course, they're speaking from their heart. Oh, my God, my nephew, my niece, my granddaughter, my grandson.
That's the grandma scam. That's what John and I call it. It's the grandma scam.
And they're just taking advantage of these people.
We've said more times than once on this show, we tell people, because I'm sure a lot of old folks listen to the show, tell them, listen, the IRS will never call you at home to harass you. And so if somebody does, hang up on them. If the IRS needs to find you, they will. Yep. Don't worry that you hung up on the guy. But just to reiterate,
paper, budgets.
And we keep going through it because old folks, I think part of it is the isolation. They may be up and around their house and maybe going out doing flowers, but their interaction with the world at large is severely limited. So when something rocks their world a little bit, they get scared. And like you said, they spent their whole life saving up that nest egg. And I keep reminding them that there are professionals out there whose job it is to separate them from that money.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to be aware that every time somebody,
They wake up every single day. They don't go to a job. They're not, driving. They wake up and figure out a new way to scam people.
Bingo.
And that's how they make their living. And it's unfortunate they're picking on our seniors. So we're going to pick on them back. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Professional criminals, professional policing, is certainly a good tool against it. The scams are certainly insane. I hear it a lot, in my line of work. But even personally, I just found out recently that someone's trying to commit deed and title fraud on my home. So that was a nice rude awakening, and just kind of then going down the rabbit hole of seeing how common this occurrence is and seeing how a lot of times there isn't much recourse because they could be doing it from who knows where and all these types of things, Department of Labor scams. It really is a shame, but that's great to hear that in that one instance there that person was able to be, brought to justice in a sense.
And one of the things that we did come up with, there was a story just like that. A grandma got a call, your grandson's been in an accident and it was his fault. He needs the bail money and he's got to do this. And she said, she hung up on the guy and they asked her, how did you so quickly just got your stuff together and just hung up on him? She says, my grandson and I have a password together.
Perfect.
And that man didn't say it.
Yeah, no, I've heard that from local police officers, and
where I'm at,
saying that's a good thing to do. Civics Association say
I'm going to use it at my press conference at 12 o'clock today. I promise you.
And if some of the seniors at least remember that, hey, you got grandkids out there, they're out there interfacing with the world in your home, so you don't get this word, whatever it is. Pick a word that nobody uses that and if you both know that. You could save yourself a lot of heartache when people call telling you that they know what's going on with your kids or your grandkids, and you really don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't hear the word. I didn't hear the word. I said, good for you.
I thought you were going to say she knew cashless bail. There's no way they want bail.
That'd be a very informed.
I just think it's a great idea. We just have to have a little forethought and a little foresight, and people can do that. And although Grandma may have a tendency to forget the word, so you have to maybe write it on the inside of a cabinet somewhere.
To your point, Bill, sometimes simple strategies, simple defenses, like this. And I know a big thing, I think we've talked with you before about, Commissioner, a lot of those crimes of opportunity that we see these upticks in, these quality of life crimes, a lot of, what do they call it, door surfing, or, people who just check to see what people's cars are open. So if you could lock your cars, if you could keep your key fobs not near the door so someone could just open your car and take it away, things like that. It's a shame that we have to worry about this, but to Bill's point.
We just had several cars stolen. Yeah. People left them running. They leave them running in front of their house. They go in. They're driving around waiting. Oh, there's one. I'm jumping in. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Make it any easier.
Well, and the other one you mentioned, the catalytic converter. My son-in-law. It was it was the type of car too. It was a Honda Element.
Yep.
The Element, because it's so high. A guy doesn't even need to jack it up. He rolls under it, bang, bang, and it's gone.
Yep. That's battery operated.
That's a $3,000 altercation there. That's what it wound up costing him. The converter itself is worth more than $1,000. And then to have it reinstalled in the car. But what do you do?
Crazy.
What can you do there? Besides, put your car
park
in
it in the driveway. If you had a garage, you can do it. Nothing's going in my garage, I can tell you that. But if you had the garage, you put it in the garage. If you can't put it in the driveway, put it in a well-lit area. Leave your window cracked a little bit, just a little bit. These guys are climbing under your car with a Sawzall.
Yeah.
That's a loud tool. But everybody's got their windows closed. It's wintertime. You got the heat on, so you're not hearing it. And so they're coming at 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Leave it open just a crack.
Oh, you mean like a bedroom window? So
when you're
sleeping,
you can hear.
Right.
Yeah,
the sound would travel.
And to the neighbors in the community, if you go to work at 5 a.m. and you see a car that you know is not your car in the neighborhood or your friend's car, your neighbor's car, call 911. Suspicious car. We'll go check it out. Because if it's just driving through the neighborhood, no harm, no foul. We're driving around anyhow. Right. It gives us another set of eyes and points us in the direction. But it may be the guy driving around looking for the Honda to get underneath and cut out the catalytic converter.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of like block clubs and other types of groups, work with the local PD and like community affairs, and always good to kind of see something, say something where we live. So that's important. And we talked about a couple of topics there, but maybe back to maybe traffic a bit, because I know we all drive on these highways, maybe more than we'd like to, Commissioner, and obviously there's always concerns about whether it's the weather and whether it's just driving daily, the traffic kind of situation. So can you talk about that in terms of I guess PD's role, whether it's highway enforcement or anything that I guess really can be learned, keeping both the officers safe, because we know we've seen some tragedies with them on the sides of the road, and also the people who are the drivers commuting safe.
You always try to figure out what the cause is, right? And I look at there's two causes that brought us to where we are with the driving to the way it is today on the road. The first one was COVID, right? And the COVID virus caused us, enforcement, to pull back. I'm not pulling somebody over and somebody's spewing on me and I'm going to get sick. And this is the first round of COVID, not so much the second round.
Yeah.
The second side of it is those people who are at idle hands at home, not going to work, souping up their cars, adding on the extra mufflers, whatever it is, and then and everybody being cooped up. Now all of a sudden the doors open up and they start driving like crazy. And again, if we're not doing the enforcement, and we just had a meeting on this the other day, if we're not doing the enforcement the way we were doing it before COVID, we're gonna end up having roadways where people just feel, well, he ran the light, I'm running the light. Mm-hmm. There's no camera here. He's speeding, I'm speeding. And sometimes you don't know you're speeding. You're following the car next to you.
Yeah.
If he's driving fast, you're just following him, and all of a sudden you look down and go, oh my God, I'm 20 miles over the speed limit. So we're gonna start doing our part and really picking it up. And again, it's about keeping the people safe. Yeah. If it's not about the community in general, it's not about the officers that are out there working. What about all those that have already lost their life because of Michael Califano, who was killed, Joel Averi, who was killed? I go to George Day, who's out of his career, because I got Kenny Barabolt, who's still in a wheelchair for the last 12 years. Mm-hmm. These officers were out there doing their job and were hit by bad drivers. We need to make sure that we can go and address these problems look at it respectfully, not, any bias involved. A speeding car is a speeding car, and go out there and do the enforcement, and we'll get it back under control.
Yeah, and just one other last thing on that topic, because again, a lot of us are just driving throughout the day. Do we see it's mostly just those random occurrences, and whether it may be road rage or DWIs or stuff like that, or do we see like some areas maybe less so organized, kind of like the drifting and people being reckless? Is that an issue on the island, or I hear some things occasionally, but not as much as in some other places? So what do people?
No,
and even on the highways, I've seen people actually legitimately have their quads, kind of just whether quads or whatever, take up like the highway and do these kind of crazy tricks. So what can you say, I guess, about how we keep people safe when that stuff happens?
So a lot of people, when they see a bunch of motorcycles together, right away they go, oh my God, again, implicit bias, right?
Right, yeah.
Bad guys. Oh, look what they're doing. They're going to go crazy on the roads. Not everybody drives like that. And a lot of the motorcycle groups that you see on Long Island, they stay in there 2 per lane, and they drive. They have a long group with them, but that's what it is. It's like, it's a bike ride.
Yeah, normal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side, you get some of the individuals that just go crazy, and they start popping wheelies in the middle of the street, and they're going on into ongoing traffic, doing so. They're the ones that we need to get the phone calls. We need to go out there and try to address them.
We got kids on bicycles doing that.
That's correct.
Yeah, so
And
all
there
right,
doesn't
like I
seem
said,
to
good to
be any
know.
recourse. You see on social media people reacting to that. And, one guy saying, I'm going to get out and beat that kid up. And somebody else says, well, you don't want to do that because now you're the bad guy. And
Road rage is a problem. And listen, the best thing to do is you see it, call 911. We get paid to do that. We get paid to interact, right? And now with our body cameras, everything's transparent. You'll see the interaction. Don't get engaged with somebody because you don't know what level that next person will take it. You might want to just go by and yell and scream or give them the finger, right?
Right.
But at the other side, guy, the other day, a rabbi in 5 towns is driving along, little road rage incident. The rabbi pulls up, there's an exchange, and next thing the guy takes a pipe that he's got sitting on the front of his car and throws it through the windshield of the rabbi in the car next to him. It goes by his face, didn't injure him, thank God, but it could have been bad.
Yeah.
And it could have been worse. Now the next guy's a guy with a gun. And he's just, boom, I'm having a bad day. Now you're going to feel the wrath of my bad day.
Right.
So don't engage. Call 911.
Yeah.
Take a picture with your cell phone. We'll do the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, important information,
that's
of
a rough
course.
one. I wanted to ask a question about, because this came up with red light cameras and now the police body cameras. The red light camera idea was people were receiving their traffic tickets in the mail from a company. That unsettled a lot of people. To know that the chain of, I don't know what you call it, evidence? Not really, but yeah, I guess the chain of it is going to a third party. Mm-hmm.
It's a third party that's been vetted and runs the company, and their whole company is built on their integrity. So they're very concerned to make sure that none of that is interfered or hacked into and so forth.
Right.
You pass a red light camera, it's a video, right? If you haven't done one, you'll get caught eventually. Because I did 3 times. Right on red is also running the red light.
It says right on red after stop.
There you go.
That's the one people forget.
So it gives the ticket to the car, to the plate. Doesn't know who the driver is, right? When I give a ticket to you personally, I then testify.
You identified me with my license.
Correct. So you'll get it saying this car passed the red light. Here's the video. You can go view it online. You'll look at it and you go, oh, I guess I did pass that red light.
Oh, now I remember.
Swore never happened, right? But and then you pay the fine. The company is hired because they get a fee. But they're hired for the processing of this, right?
Right.
If we had to do what this company did, we'd have to hire an army to handle the issues. So that's how the red light cameras work. The cameras that are now on school buses are starting to roll out onto school buses. Same thing.
Yep.
People just don't realize, when you see a school bus, it doesn't matter what side of the road, doesn't matter if you're going east and the bus is going west, you have to stop.
Yeah. That's a confusing thing for a lot of people when it comes down to, let's say, like Hempstead Turnpike. In some places, there is no median. There is no grass.
Right.
There's just a double yellow line down the middle, and people are confused as to whether, if they're heading toward Nassau Community College heading west and a bus is on the east side, do they have to stop for them? And technically by the VTL, the Vehicle and Traffic Law, they do.
So you do. And the idea of that, the whole idea of the sign coming out is because it's not that the kid's getting out of the bus and stepping on the sidewalk and going into the building right here. He's getting out of the bus. He's going to cross over.
Use a crosswalk, right?
And that's when all of our children, unfortunately, get hit by the vehicle coming out from behind it. So the idea is you got to stop.
Yeah.
The arguments can be made, in court later. Say, listen, this is a double. But if there's a divider in the road, that school bus is not permitted to allow that child to cross. If there's a double yellow line, that school bus is not permitted to allow that child. They got to go to a crosswalk.
Okay.
They're not supposed to just cross in random any street. On a side street, they're going to cross over because there is no crosswalks on all of our side streets. So, again, stop for the school bus.
Yeah, that's
the outcome's a lot better than delaying the day.
I think maybe the county needs to, make a couple of those little videos that they could keep throwing up on so that people start to get that idea.
When the school buses start getting it, we're going to put out a lot of education on it.
Yeah, right, okay. There was I have an anecdote, I guess. I played a party one time, and it was for a bunch of state troopers. Kind of half jokingly, as we were leaving the party, there were about 8 of us standing around in a circle. And I turned around as I was leaving. I turned and said, "Oh, wait a minute, guys. I have one more question for you." And I said, "How fast can we go now?" And I'll tell you what.
Same as you could before we came in here.
Knee-jerk reaction. And a guy said 74 miles an hour. And I said, well, okay, I'm good with that because 70 is good for me. Even, but I'm wondering... because he said, listen, no trooper is going to pull you over for anything more than that because they want to get you dead to rights. And when we do get you, we're going to get you because that's you got to be doing 80. And if you're doing that, we're going to get you.
It's not ambiguous at that point.
Right. But if you drive Southern State Parkway, you see 55 miles an hour. Now, I'm curious as to when the clampdown is going to come and somebody's going to say, you know what, 70 is no longer acceptable. 60 we could deal with.
The real number is usually 10 miles. Now, on a side street, not acceptable.
Yeah, right.
Of course, that's different.
But on a lot of the highways, Southern State and so forth, if it's 55, you'll get a little leeway up to 64 miles.
Right.
You hit 65 or above, you're definitely getting tagged.
Yeah.
They may stop you at 60 because you're in that speed. The whole traffic is not going that speed. Mm-hmm. If everybody's going 63 miles an hour, well, they're not going to pull everybody off. The flow of traffic's going, it's good driving. If you got somebody weaving in and out and he's going 63, well, he's going to get stopped. And listen, we are a paramilitary organization. Mm-hmm. The troopers are paramilitary of the paramilitary.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yes, that's for sure.
The troops are very good, and they do a great job out there.
I heard a good one you might appreciate. The trooper pulled the guy over, and he said, let me see your license and registration. And the guy's looking at him, and he says, I was going with the traffic. I'm going as fast as everybody else. What are you giving me the ticket for? So the cop asked him, and he says, you ever go fishing? And the guy says, yeah. He says, you ever catch all the fish?
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Okay, I get it.
With that, let's remind our listeners they are listening to this week's Long Island News here on 90.3 WHPC, the radio voice of Nassau Community College. Still joined, thankfully, here by Bill McIntyre, myself, Jon Gallo, and NCPD Commissioner Patty Ryder. Thank you again. So let's see. Moving on to some of those topics. I know you talked about opioids, which is important, and we've talked with a lot of the other electeds, like Town of Hempstead council member D'Esposito, who I know is former law enforcement, and really has been pushing the Narcan trainings, and we know that there's a lot of those types of concerns that kind of come from the pandemic. But I guess maybe moving towards some of the other topics that we previously discussed, to maybe get an update on. I guess we were curious, Bill and I, about kind of the status of policing reform, because we know, last year, after the summer and the protests that we've spoken about before, the county had passed some, I guess, policies that kind of were prompted by the state government. I think it was Executive Order 203, and just where did things stand? I guess in that process, Commissioner. So
first of all, Anthony D'Esposito, one of the hardest working guys out there in politics, and does a great job, and a big supporter of law enforcement. I always give him a shout out. He's one of the best that we have out there. The whole town of Hempstead, all of our townships right now are running great. So reform. The reform was required to be done, and everything you said in your reform that was approved by the governor's office, if it was approved, had to be completed by this January. So body cameras. Everybody in the Nassau County Police Department on patrol has a body camera now, except our gang unit and our undercovers for obvious reasons.
Yeah, right.
We're downloading all that video every day. It's working seamless, thank God. And we're pushing that out to the district attorney's office, who then it goes out to defense counsels to make our requirement on discovery. We're good there.
Okay.
Education. Doing a training on implicit bias, bias awareness, and sensitivity and de-escalation. We have trained all of our detective division. We have trained all of our supervisors. We have trained all of our patrol units in a 1-hour training block online, but we've got about 700 in the 10-hour block already. So we're moving in the right direction. Right. But everybody got some implicit bias training last year. So we touched everybody. And again, the best part of the training is listening to what the world's saying out there, and our guys and gals are grabbing it very well. The next thing was mental health. Big one. That is one of the biggest issues out there.
Definitely.
We have partnered with our mental health, it's called mobile crisis teams. Before, it would be afterwards they get notified. Now they're getting notified in 3 situations. The first call that comes over and it says, I'm depressed, I haven't taken my medication. That's a 911 call. Normally, we would send a police officer. We'd send an ambulance. Out of 2,700 calls in 2020, I think it was, 96% went to the hospital. You'd think that's a good thing. That's not a good thing. Yeah. And as the mental health experts explain to us, they don't belong in a hospital. They're better off staying home. They just need to get back on their medicine. They need to speak to somebody, and they're the experts, and they're right. Mm-hmm. So when that call comes in now, and there's no threat of violence or anybody trying to hurt themselves or anything like that, we immediately contact Mobile Crisis. We put them on the phone together. And if the individual on Mobile Crisis says, I know Jon Gallo, he's a regular with us, we know we got him. He's good. Okay?
Yep.
Communications Bureau transfers it to them, and we're out. So no police response, no ambulance, keeps cops on the road, keeps ambulances on the road. Good. The second one is that, let's say he's threatening to kill himself or he's threatening suicide. They immediately dispatch a police car, but a dual response from Mobile Crisis. So Mobile Crisis, though, is not flying with lights and sirens throughout our county. They're driving in quadrants. They're set up in 4 different quadrants, and they're responding from whatever their location is at the time. So we may get there at the same time. 99% of the time, the cops will always beat them there, but sometimes Mobile Crisis is already there for whatever their daily visits are. Right. We're going to work together. What is the best outcome for the individual? And again, if the expert tells my officers, we got him, he's good, there's no reason to go to the hospital, we'll take care of it from here, and there's no safety issues, we're done, we're finished. Again, experts doing their job. Right. The last one is if there's violence, threat of killing somebody, hurting somebody, you got a weapon, we go. Yep. We're going to notify Mobile Crisis. So it's a dual response, but it's ours. Right. And we're controlling that scene until it's safe for everybody to take. Even in those cases, the mental aided that has a knife doesn't always get arrested. That's not where he needs to go. He doesn't need to get collared because the fact that he menaced, he stood there looking around with the knife, and technically that's a menacing to our officers. Our officers, know how to handle that. Our emergency service guys know how to handle it. They're experts at what they do. But if the mobile crisis person gets in and says, listen, he's going to the hospital. There's no doubt about that. He doesn't need to be arrested, but let's get him to the hospital, and mobile crisis is there with us. That's what we're going to do. So and sometimes we'll use mobile crisis to assist us in that exchange at the hospital. So now it's treating the people right. So that's how we're handling our mental health crisis out there. Our body cams, our training.
Very important.
So the next becomes activity, right? So training those on implicit bias, bias awareness, and everything else. Explaining to our cops, look, our job is to keep the road safe. But on the other side of it, you have discretion. You always have discretion. I don't care if there's a body camera on you or not. Knowing the communities we're policing, we police them better. Understanding the communities we police them better. So not always do you have to write the ticket. Sometimes you can work with somebody, and say, hey, listen, do me a favor. Let's get this registration fixed. I know your registration is expired. I see you in the neighborhood. Next couple of days, you get it fixed. Everything's good.
Yeah.
But we get it. And we're working with our cops. Tickets. So tickets are going field interviews, which is stop, question, possibly frisk. We call them field interviews. We always have out here. It's a different approach. We don't judge our crime numbers based on our field interviews, but we do ask our officers to go into a community that's having a rash of catalytic converters and at 3 o'clock in the morning, stop the vehicle. Let's see if that person lives there. You have a nice day, man, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
If they don't live there,
they should feel better that they did get
exactly.
Yeah,
And
less likely their catalytic converter gets stolen.
Exactly. And if you don't, and once that's all good and they're comfortable, and sometimes it may go on to a further investigation. So again, we're working with our car stops, our field interviews, our arrest. People want to know why the demographics. 1/3 of the people that we arrest in Nassau County don't live here. So when you compare demographics, it's not fair because 1/3 do not live in the county of Nassau.
That's interesting.
And then all of our arrests are based on probable cause. Right? They're not based on anything but evidence. You know, we don't plant drugs on people. We don't plant guns on people. We don't force them to do a burglary. So when a cop makes an arrest, it's based on the probable cause. We have a great success rate in court when we go forward. Marijuana being legalized, as you know, is changed a lot of our policing styles. You can't, if you stop a vehicle and you smell marijuana in the car, you can still look at the individual that he may be driving intoxicated or stoned on drugs. You can get them out of the car. But it doesn't give you the right to search the car. Again, on the body camera now. So if he's arrested and he's the one smoking the marijuana, then you will be searching that vehicle because you're going to impound that vehicle. And we have to search the vehicle. So there's a lot of things that have changed in that direction, but our complaints are down. And that's because of body cameras, right? People know you're going to make a complaint. I'm going to show you a video. But on the other side, and I'll put it on us too, we know when we get out of that car and we're going to engage with that community, I got a body camera.
Yep, you got an observer.
So I'm de-escalating myself by that camera, and I'm telling the person that I stopped, I got a body camera and it's recording, I'm de-escalating them.
Right.
It works. And our cops, for the most part, have accepted that, and we're doing well. Like I said, our crime numbers for the beginning of the year, you can't even look at them. It's only 3 weeks in. Because there's three numbers.
That's really last year's.
Yeah, three numbers become 300%.
I have. I've got a question though. When we went to about opioids before, I don't know if they break it down like this, but do you find the older folks having opioid overdoses, or is it mostly middle-aged and young kids?
No, it's so our number one overdose is between 18 and 27.
Okay.
And that's based. Look, there's a dangerous thing out there right now, and it's called fentanyl. Everybody has to understand. It's in your heroin. They're putting it into their marijuana. We don't see much of that in Nassau County, but they are doing it around the country.
You can put anything in there. Yeah.
They're putting it into their heroin. But the newest thing out there, the new rage, is to taking a Xanax. And many kids take Xanax, right, to calm themselves down, right? Whatever the reason they're on that Xanax. They're taking the pill, they're crushing the pill, and they're repressing it, and they're pressing it with fentanyl in it.
Okay.
So it looks like the same Xanax that you were taking before. Whatever your doctor prescribes for you, you keep. It's in your bottle. It's labeled to you. Nobody touches that but you. But if you go to somewhere and someone goes, try this Xanax. I got a Xanax for you. First time users are dying because of the pressed pill that's out there.
You're playing with fire.
Absolutely.
But here, historically and traditionally, what happened? I mean, for years on Long Island, we know there's been heroin here, and heroin dealers have been cutting the heroin with fentanyl. That we know, and most of the users, I think, know that. Because if you took pure heroin, it would kill you. So they know they can't do that. It's like the guy that used to be on 53rd Street. They'd make a joke, we're going to buy Johnny a bottle of scotch. Well, Johnny knows better. He's been drinking so much, he just wants a little bit of ripple. And maybe he'll just smell it, and he's going to get his high. So they're not stupid. But the thing that happened in the last few years was that the fentanyl that came out of China was 100% more potent than the stuff that they had traditionally been using. The dealers didn't know that.
Yeah.
So they did their regular routine, and then people started dying left and right. So, I mean, if you're a user or, those are the things you really have to worry about.
You're a kilo. You buy a kilo of heroin. You mix it with a half a pound of whatever your mix is, you got a pound and a half a kilo. You made money. And that mix cost me nothing.
Used to be baby powder.
Exactly. Now, but the heroin became so pure, that's why people are dying. So now not only the heroin's pure that you're dying from it, Now they're mixing a little fentanyl to make it more addictive, so you come back for more.
That definitely goes to the point of why the Narcan trainings and the distribution of that is so important, of course, and all the awareness on trying to divert people to alternatives, when it comes to addiction and the health crisis that is. And I know you touched on. I don't think we have too much time to go into the kind of details of it, but the marijuana legalization, although the county and the towns have opted out of the selling of it, they did legalize it, so we know that's going to impact things. But to your point, especially concerns about fentanyl maybe being in marijuana, that's the thing that a controlled system, thankfully, somewhat hopefully will stop, but there's still going to be the black markets, I'm sure that you guys will have to contend with. So I don't know, is that still up in the air? Like, does police know exactly where their role is now with this new kind of landscape of legalization?
So you can't smoke marijuana publicly where you can't smoke a cigarette. If you can smoke a cigarette publicly, you can smoke marijuana. You can possess up to 3 ounces. So that's a lot of weed, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of joints in your pocket. So we smell it more, not as much as I thought I would, but we're not selling it publicly. Everybody is opted out. They're trying to, because they still get a bit of the profit from the state. Look, we've made these arguments. We've seen what other states and what has happened when you legalize marijuana. I think it really affects the bigger cities. Again, it's in, and I'll say this, I haven't seen it hitting us that hard in Nassau County. Yeah. And, we're a couple months into it. I don't agree with it, and I've made that publicly.
Yeah, we know.
But again, the law changes. We just enforce the law. So we have. But if I say one thing, and I plead this to every parent out there, is that have the conversation with your kid. Just talk to him about what's he doing in life, what are his friends, know who his friends are, look for the signs of a kid that's not the same kid that was a month ago. Yeah. And that's going to be the telltale to tell you that your kid's going down a bad path. And hopefully we can get him the help. Yeah.
I think one of the misconceptions that people felt, oh my God, they legalized marijuana. Now everybody's going to be smoking it. And my thought was, the people that are going to be smoking it are already smoking it. Yeah. Nobody's coming out of the woodwork because all of a sudden all the authority figures said, all right, we give up. Go ahead and do it. I don't think there's been a surge. And I agree with you.
Most on the southern state. When I drive down the southern state, I smell it. It's
right.
Still hot, and it's very potent.
Yep. But I agree with you. I don't think I thought it was going to be a little bit more. I think since it's been legalized, I think once in public I saw a guy smoking outside a pizza place.
Yeah, I haven't. We don't see much of it. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was it.
Well, like I said, that certainly is something that we'll have to keep an eye on in terms of how that plays. And, also there's legalized gambling now, which is a different realm, but times are definitely changing a bit in terms of some of these things that were once a little more kind of socially taboo. But, we only have a few moments, obviously, left, Commissioner, with you right here now. But I guess, I know this is an active kind of litigation situation, so I don't know if you can say much, and I'm not looking for details, but there seems to be a lawsuit that your department, along with the DA's office, and I believe other aspects of the county, have kind of, I guess, been involved with regarding, it looks like, some records from police officers being released, and a judge specifically in the county, I believe, Angle. Is there a timeline in terms of when the public can expect what the outcomes will be? I know it's tough with the courts.
Well, it comes down to the courts, but for the public, what's already out there in the public that everybody knows, 50A's is the disciplinary records of a police officer. Judges have always had the right, when asked by a defense counsel, to request the disciplinary records of an officer. And it's for the judge's view. If the judge felt that was acceptable and it affects this case, they would release it to the defense counsel and have it entered into evidence. Then 50A gets overturned and says, now you must give all founded and unfounded cases. The problem we're having is that they're asking for everything. So if I have an exonerated, unfounded, unsubstantiated case against you, he wants to see that. And it's not so much that he wants to see it. He wants the defense counsel to have it. So we get complaints all the time that are just ridiculous. I have my frequent flyers that make 2 complaints a week to the Nassau County Police Department. We have to investigate them. Yeah. I know they're not true, but we have to investigate them because the one time that they are true is where we're going to get caught short. So we have them. We also have cases where a defendant that we locked up for drugs and a gun or whatever, he makes a complaint, said he was roughed up. Well, I got body cameras now. So we look at the body camera, and the body camera never shows it never happened. So what happens is that's an unfounded case. That's if it's unsubstantiated, well, I couldn't prove it one way or the other. But if it's unfounded, undetermined, right? He wants those too. And you're now, a lot of our stuff is administrative. So you lost the radio. You lost your shield. You lost your ID card. We all have lost our wallet in our lifetime, right?
Of course.
My ID card's in there. You're going to get burned 5 days for that.
Wow.
So it's your responsibility to keep that ID card. You lost it, you get burned 5 days. 5 days pay. Wow. And what people don't realize is that now goes as a founded case. It has nothing to do with the criminal case. It's an administrative thing. But the judge is now saying, release it. Well, we're not giving it. At least not yet. We're making the argument that we should protect our officers also who are out there putting their lives on the line. And the fact that they had something administrative, or it's an unfounded case, we should not be giving that. We're not, listen, 50A gets turned over. Okay, we can appeal, we can make our arguments. We're probably going to lose that side of it, but that's for a founded case. If I got a cop that's founded who used a racial slur and is now when somebody's claiming he used a racial slur, well, yeah, absolutely. That should be turned over. Right? I got a cop that's been numerous complaints for that he's too aggressive. Yeah, well, that's automatically turned over. And by the way, that's already goes to the AG now as part of oversight. So part of reform, the AG gets it, the DA gets it, the police department gets it, IAU gets it, and now the courts get it. Wow. Everybody gets it. So if that cop has more than 5 complaints in a I forget the time period right now, but it's automatically forwarded to the DA's office, and they take a look at it. And then it's also automatically forwarded to the AG's office, and they take a look.
See, I think that the public ought to know some of these specifics about, because they don't.
The logistics.
And, they're getting away with this, they're getting away with this. You know what? The amount of paperwork you're talking about right there just takes my breath away.
Every complaint gets followed through. They're the most extensive investigations we do in the police department is a complaint against our own. We love to prove when they're right, the cop, but if they're wrong, we have to discipline them. And people don't realize we take money from their pockets. It's a penalty. They lose pay. Right. 5 days pay may not seem like a lot. That's a lot of money to your family.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's certainly enlightening, and like I said, I know there's a lot of kind of information that's flying around, and moving pieces regarding also looks like some of those DWI cases and some other things that are being reported. But thank you for trying to clear up again and reinstate the case that PD and the DA's office under the former DA Joyce Smith had kind of filed. So definitely appreciate all that time. I did just want to mention I don't know how much you worked with her, but Keechant Sewell, the new commissioner at NYPD, it was nice to see someone from the NCPD side get a lot of praise lately, and definitely. Congrats. I'm sure, someone that needs to be replacing her, but nice to see, NCPD get lots of kudos for giving some of the best and, brightest over to the other side of the borough, I guess, or border, I guess.
You always want to see one of your own to make good.
Yeah.
And she's an excellent person. She's super bright, presents well, can handle anything. And you want to challenge her? Good luck.
Yeah.
She's tough.
She's
what? Really tough.
Yeah.
And
I agree with everything you said. I saw her on TV the one time when she was, and I just said, man, she's going to do the NYPD got one of the best. Yeah.
Emotional intelligence. That's definitely a good thing to be seeing, kind of talked about at the policing at the high level. So very great to speak with you always, Commissioner. Thank you so much for your time, for all the information, and for helping keep the county safe, of course. So thanks to you and your members.
Thank you
again, I'm sure.
Thank you. And again, we could have another conversation around the table for a little while and probably record 3 or 4 hours. Because I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask you just about things in general, the stuff that's going on. But we kept it to the commissioner stuff. So in any event, thank you for coming, and we hope to see you again soon. I know you're going to run out of here and go to another meeting.
I'm going over to the academy, my new academy right over here.
Oh, you don't have far to go. That's pretty good. In any event. So yes, we always want to thank the police commissioner and Nassau County for lending us you for a little while. We thank you for joining us and remind you can catch this week's Long Island News every Friday at 3 o'clock right here on 90.3 WHPC.